Yo, everyone. I hope it's winter where you are because this is not winter. I don't know I don't know how broken winter is. I've seen now for 20 years winter become something very different. Really for the last 10. And it's pretty disconcerting. The ground right now is not only did we lose all our snow, which is relatively unusual for the last 25 years that I've watched winter up here in Vermont, but the ground isn't even frozen. And that is not only surprising, it stinks because you can't even log. And, that'll happen every now and then, but now it's just happening like most winters. And I'm seeing things that I've never seen happen, like the pond. And this is a good climate metric because it is a buffer and absorbs, it's a reflective of climate, not just weather. Ice on the pond. I've kept track of when the pond freezes over, when it melts in the spring. And that's how you'd keep track of it. You just mark the beginning and end. Now what we're seeing is the pond is unfreezing in the middle of winter. And that's just not been in my records at all. We actually are having our ponds melt out right now completely. I mean, not just enough that you can't skate on them, but actually like full on thawing in the middle of winter until there's almost no ice. And that is just really bizarre. My wife actually saw a frog the other day. It's January 2nd right now. She saw a frog in late December swimming around. If this is what winter is going to become in northern New England, man, I mean, we'll burn less firewood, but it's really going to cause a lot of issues. Never mind just kind of stink. I mean, this is not winter. It's like kind of perpetual mud season. I'm just collecting some birch bark because we now have to make so many fires. You used to, for most years, for a couple hundred years at least in New England, probably more than that, a lot more than that, you'd make a fire and you'd keep the fire going. I mean, you'd at least have coals, in the morning. And now it's just too warm. It's in the 40s right now. It was 50 the other day. And, you just go through so much kindling and tinder. You're starting so many fires because it's just too warm to keep the fires going. And that's great. We're using a lot less firewood. No complaint there. But man, I mean, it's just it's the speed of this change that's just getting a little bit disconcerting. I mean, I've been studying climate change since before. I would be willing to bet almost any of you have heard the term. And I don't say that to brag. It's just in 2000 and just how long I've been kind of focused on it. 1994. I spent the summer in Alaska studying glaciology and the mass balance of the Juneau ice field. Totally focused on climate. Climate records, multi-millennia climate records, and way beyond many thousands of millennia of climate records. We did ice cores. We were measuring the mass balance of the ice sheet and could see, the warming, the Holocene warming in general. I'm not here to, harp on anthropogenic climate change and carbon credits and the whole just bait and switch that is the climate myopia and carbon myopia. I don't think climate change is actually the gravest environmental threat facing us today or existential threat by any means. I think it's actually overplayed and leveraged to make money. So I'm with many of you on that. I've seen that. I was dubious of that a few years ago, and now I'm not. It's just like the pandemic, right? It's just going to be leveraged for power, and that's just how it works, right? But it's still an issue. It's a very serious issue, just like a disease. Doesn't mean it can't be over-amplified, over-exaggerated, and also more so just leveraged for non-solutions that are hyped to be the solution. The biggest one of those I've been studying for about 5 years, but more so lately, the electric renewable revolution, especially electric car craze. And that's not at all what it seems to many people, although I think a lot of people are waking up to what it really is. We're being sold a fantasy, as someone I know said. But just that the reality that we're going to swap some fossil fuels for like all of the world's remaining fossil minerals that we can get at anyway, at huge destructive cost, including the entire seabed. We're going to be mining out, most likely, for this. Remember, these aren't energy sources we're chasing. We're chasing storage options, and they suck. They're terrible storage options. No fan of fossil fuels, don't get me wrong. Got no love for coal, nuclear, which is a fossil fuel, very, very old fossil fuel. Oil, gas, forget about it. I hate fracking. I hate the looting of ancient resources so we can burn them all up, mostly for non-needs, but for wasteful purposes. Not even for, it'd be one thing to use these resources for things we really need, crucial things, making water pipe, making ropes and, rime, frost fabrics, and things that are, really crucial, greenhouses. Go for it. But obviously we're mostly just burning them all up. And, but that doesn't mean that the alternatives are necessarily any better. And I think what we're going to see over the next decade probably won't last longer than a decade, because the minerals just aren't there. There's not enough minerals. I think there needs to be more than 100 times the amount of cobalt alone than we've identified even exists. And this is even very exploratory, not that we can even get at a lot of it now, but even including all that in the seabed, for instance, then we'd need to have a meaningful switch to EVs, for instance. So it's a non-solution. No diss on you if you have an electric car. I'm sure you're trying your best. That's why you have an electric car. I don't doubt that for a moment. But unfortunately, it's not what I think many people still think it is. So anyway, a little bit of rant there, but time for one of those. Happy New Year to you if this is your new year, and I hope everyone is well. It's going to be continuing to be some interesting times coming for decades going, that's for sure. And all we can do is adapt and look for local solutions where we can find them, hands-on local solutions that are actual solutions, not tech solutions being sold to us that we can buy to think we've done something. Even though that would be nice. If that was the reality, that would be really nice. That would be so easy. Just buy a different thing. Swap out what you're buying. There's some more. I'm just looking for a birch bark here. And anyway, hope you guys are all well. And speaking of solutions, I'm not doing this to pitch my next workshop, although I might as well. I've got no shame in that. I'm offering a lot of information that I've gleaned over 20 years and at great expense from what I've tested, all the different wood stove systems. Next Wednesday, I think it's January 9th, second Wednesday, I think, in January, I'm doing a wood heat intensive, all about wood stoves, wood hot water, multifunctional, local, carbon neutral. Not that that is the main thing about it. Highly resilient, non-electric forms of meeting your basic needs with wood. Current energy. Current solar energy. Wood. So we're wishing you the best. And hope you're doing well wherever you are. Right, Jangles, you want to say hello? Say hi to all the people out there? Yeah, you're a good man. He's not very happy that we can't even ski in this weather. Well, it is what it is. I was kayaking yesterday, and that was fun, although not nearly as fun as skiing. Take care, everyone. Early winter root cellar visit here. It's been really warm. Winter feels kind of broken here. It's 43 degrees inside the mead ferment room and inside the root cellar, both. We got 2 vents to the outside, so it's you know, it does calibrate to the outside temperature a bit. Some root cellars that we've made are when we've made them from scratch, this is a retrofit, are able to hold their temperature more continuously. Although this one still works really great. We had to insulate the roof because it, on cold winters, threatens to freeze in here. So this is in a retrofit situation. Still totally rock hard, really good watermelon radish and kohlrabi. Some kohlrabis keep better than others. We have best of luck with Cossack so far, although I'm still testing it, of course. You can see they're starting to get a little weird there. But they're still holding up good. It's this area that tends to rot. You make a kohlrabi salad, it's like my favorite thing in the winter. Kohlrabi, radish. And carrot. With balsamic, a little tamari, and a little bit of sesame oil, toasted sesame oil. So good. It's real medicinal. I put a lot of Thai hat peppers in it as well. Chestnuts, walnuts, hickories, bunch of trees overwintering in here. UVM did a study years ago about storing carrots. I used to store them in sand, and they found that plastic bags were just as good as anything else. So I no longer go through the trouble of sand. Try to eat my big potatoes, plant the small ones. There's a few other techniques that I found over the years too, which I can elaborate on, and I will. I'm gonna do a whole workshop just on root cellars at some point in the future. We'll probably have a subscription to these courses, so you won't have to buy, if you want to get them all, you won't have to buy each one. You'll be able to just have a membership. That's probably what we're gonna end up doing. We're trying to craft that now. And you won't have to, you know, so it'll be a much better deal. Just get a whole membership. These russets go early compared to others, so I try to eat those first. Managing the root cellar is its own art. You got to eat the worst stuff first. I do like russets, but they just don't keep like these Katahdins. Although they keep better than like Adirondack Blues, for instance. Kind of tested a lot of different varieties. They mostly say what they do in the nursery catalogs if they tell you how well they keep, but the difference between potato varieties can be very significant. You really want to focus on the keepers, of course. Keeping storage qualities of food, probably the most important single characteristic we can focus on in this climate. Cipollini onions, summer or fall sown shallots, spring sown shallots. These are the all-star keepers. And then Patterson and other yellow onions, which are pretty all-star too. Look how beautiful these are. They're hard to see, but these are just in great shape, super hard. I saved the shallots, they're the coveted. They will last easily into spring. But I'll go for the Cipollini's, although Cipollini's keep surprisingly well. People say they're not a storage variety. Wrong, at least for us, they really are.